Hey guys, Dozer here bringing you a new video. Today I wanted to talk briefly about Project Blue. It's a new format that LSS is beta testing at the moment. This is not like a officially supported competitive format, but they are trying to see what they can do by bridging the gap between Blitz and Commoner by allowing you to run both commons and rares in your main deck, whereas Commoner allows you to do rares and commons in the equipment slot, but only commons in the main deck. Now they're going to try and enable people to have access to the commons and rares in their main deck as well. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this because, oh, it's a new thing. LSS is talking about this new thing, and they've got this really sick Sync Below promo that they are offering to people. I believe this is only happening in New Zealand or something. It's definitely not everywhere, but yeah, it says right there, New Zealand exclusive, right? But basically, I wanted to talk about this because LSS, I think, is at a bit of a crossroads. And I don't think Project Blue is going to have the effect that they want it to have on the metagame. So, or not in the metagame, but just on the player base and on the world, right? So why would LSS want to create Project Blue? Well, right now, there's been a lot of people talking about how getting into Flesh and Blood is really difficult, right? The game is expensive because of all of the cards that are really powerful, that are at high rarities, that you need to run if you want to be a competitive player. The decks that are strong come and go relatively quickly with the Living Legend system, and the print numbers of the sets are such that you've got cards like Belling of the Crown or Plow Under and so on going insanely high in price, even when they're not meta, right? These really powerful staple cards for heroes that people want to play, whether they're powerful or not, are really commanding high price tags that are really strapping people on their wallets. Like, it's really hard for people to keep up with the cost of competitive play. And obviously, if you want to be competitive, like, you're going to have to pay money for that because you have to travel, you have to pay for meals and things like that. You have to have time to practice as well. It's not just for everybody to be able to slot into their lives. People have other things they want to do, other ways they want to use their energy and their time and all that. So when LSS is looking at making a new type of way for people to use their cards or a new way to get people into the game, my only guess is that they're trying to do this to get more people into the game by making it more approachable to play Flesh and Blood on a budget. Because why else would you restrict the card pool to only commons and rares, other than wanting to keep the price point low, but keep the compatibility high, or the competitiveness high, so that people actually will play the game, right? And fall in love with the nuances and mechanics and thematics that we all love about Flesh and Blood today. The problem, though, is that I don't think that Project Blue is going to have this effect. And I'll tell you why. The reasons that Flesh and Blood is exciting for a lot of us is the marginal moments, right? It's the, oh, this person blocked with the Iron Rot Gauntlet at this point in the game. Oh, that was so smart. Oh, we make these huge sweeping statements about these very unflashy, not really super exciting, minute decisions, which could be argued a million different ways. But nonetheless, we have the experience and the knowledge to know, oh, that was a really big deal. That was really exciting, right? At the same time, we don't have a tremendous amount of compelling gameplay in the common and rare slot. Commons and rares are built for draft and limited. And the problem with draft and limited in Flesh and Blood is not only the fact that you get very siloed very quickly in draft because you can't make a playable deck out of that many cards. And so if you get forced into a specific class, you kind of just have to take it, which eliminates a lot of the deck building options that you would have normally. This has gotten a little bit better over time, especially in the Hunted. I remember there were quite a lot of cards being passed around that, at least when I played draft the last time, I was able to make sideboarding decisions in my games, right? So this is getting better to a degree, with especially like dual class cards and things like that. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, I know I say that a lot, but the experience of a new player playing in this Project Blue format is basically just going to be playing optimized draft decks. right? So many characters in the game are siloed very, very aggressively into their own class, their own talent, and they don't really use a lot of really great generic cards. And especially with Project Blue, the ban list that they have here is banning things like Sync Below and Vaporstein. And there's so many of these generic class list cards that are very powerful that won't be in this format, at least for now, because it homogenizes deck building. Well, the problem is that if you don't have a wide card pool because you're restricted to commons and rares, and your commons and rares are aggressively slated to synergize only with each other because they are built for draft and limited play, you're not going to have very crazy combos, you're not going to have very flashy things, you're not going to have very interesting moment-to-moment gameplay other than the really grindy, arithmetic-based gameplay of Flesh and Blood, which you have in every format. So while that's a good thing for Project Blue because you're still getting the core Fab experience on a budget, at the same time, I don't think it is the best way that LSS can bring in new players. And so what do I think that they should do? I'll tell you, right? When I made a video about 2 or 3 years ago about the onboarding experience for new players in Flesh and Blood, the big thing that I talked about was how atrociously bad the precons were. I was referring to the Lexi precon list for Tales of Aria, and it had just the most random cards in it, like Yellow Chill to the Bone. And I remember thinking, you know, someone would pay $10 to $15 for this thing, depending on when they bought it, and it's got Yellow Chill to the Bone in it. If you're not familiar, that's a really bad card. It's a really useless card. You can look it up on the internet, or I'll put it up on the screen or something. But basically, it was a card that made me wonder, why is this even in the deck? When would you ever want to play this over a card? Why did they not just print good cards that Lexi would actually want to run, that would make you feel like you're playing a real Lexi list? It just didn't make any sense to me. And when I made a list for my brother-in-law for him to play Levia with, or Levia, it's almost all commons and rares, but it's not entirely commons and rares. I put Bloodrush Bellow in there. I put Mandible Claw in there. I put the Reckless Swing in there, and I put Shadow Realm Horror in there because those are really great cards for Levia with a claw-based build. I gave him multiple different weapons he could switch between, whether that's Romping Club or a Ravenous Meat Axe. I put Arcane Barrier in the deck. You know, a lot of these things that you'd think are a no-brainer, it's like, okay, if I wanted to get someone to play Flesh and Blood with me, and I didn't have a lot of money to do it, what would I prioritize? I want them to play a thematic, well-designed, cohesive character who has an interesting gameplay gimmick and gameplay flavor, and give that person the tools so they can actually play with that character would play like, with almost an entirely full deck of cards that would actually go into a real CC competitive deck, but slated so that you're using Barkbone Strapping instead of Sash, or you're using Hooves of the Shadow Beast instead of Scabskin Leathers. And on it goes, to create a gameplay experience that is approachable for a new player, but also has some depth, which would then help them to convert over to the new format of CC if they decided they liked the game enough and they grew to love the game by playing it in a balanced way. Now, precons that I've made for many people have gone over well. Like, people tell me that they've been playing. I have like some cousins that I made a deck for each of them, and they all play together, and it's like a Dromai, a Katsu, a Dorinthia, and a Briar, deck. And there weren't exclusively commons in it or exclusively rares, but I tried my best to make the decks play well into each other, still feel like the characters that they're supposed to represent, and those my cousins had a great time with that. But here's the thing. The reason they had a good time with it was because I gave them a designed experience from the cards that were in Flesh and Blood to give them a similar effect that the Around the Table product had, where they had specific heroes with specific decks and specific cards that gave you a specific gameplay experience. And from what I understand, I mean, it's not the most popular thing in the world, but Around the Table did pretty well with the UPF stuff, with the Mechanologist, the Ninja, the Bard, and the Guardian, right? Bravant. So I think that LSS should literally just make a pre-con format. I think that's actually the answer. Make a pre-con format where LSS designs the decks for the heroes, and they put good cards in the precons. They put reprints of good cards that are thematic, core, iconic staples for classes like Blood Rush Bellow or Reckless Swing for brutes, or Phantasmaclasm, or something like that for Illusionist, or for Wizard it could be something like not Stormstriders necessarily, but I mean there's so many good cards that you can put in these precons. Make them Blitz precons, right? Make them 40 cards plus like a little bit of a sideboard with Arcane Barrier or something, or build it into the equipment, and help people eliminate the problem of having to deck build. Because if you're trying to onboard new players, the last thing they're going to want to do is deck build. I mean, they don't have any understanding of what it takes to make a good deck, and so they're going to be relying on resources like Gem or Fabrary or YouTube to find out what's going on. And of course, you can always build your own deck. Like, having a precon does not mean people won't be able to play Kitchen Table Fab and do whatever they want, which they already could do anyway. But if you had LSS intentionally design cards around the idea that, okay, it's going to be a precon, so anybody that buys a precon can expect that these are balanced around each other, that they're interesting, that they have good reprints, and you can make sure they have everything they need to play right out of the box at a competitive event. It's kind of what the Armory decks were trying to do, but even the Armory decks don't achieve that. Because the Armory decks still don't have sideboards, they still don't have Arcane Barrier, things like you need to play against certain heroes. And they don't necessarily have that same accessibility factor that Blitz does, because the games take so long. CC games take a long time to play, and Blitz games are fast, and you can learn and reiterate and try again, and not get bogged down in it and getting beat up for 30 to 40 minutes with a class and character in a game you don't understand. So I think, again, to summarize, if LSS wants to make a new format that's accessible to new players, they need to make it entirely around precons, because you can build the precon list with your draft chaff. If LSS puts out the deck list or the deck list come out for the precon, and you have all the cards, boom, you know exactly what you're allowed to play. You know that that's the intended game design experience of that hero in that format. It's now more about how you use the tools rather than, oh, what broken strategy did you come up with? What Refractor Enigma or what, Ball Lightning Briar are you bringing to this super underpowered format? Just steamroll people. It becomes more about, okay, these are the intended game design experiences here, and then LSS doesn't have to make it restricted to commons and rares. They can still leave Blood Rush Bellow as a super rare or majestic or whatever it is. They don't have to downgrade it to rare or common to justify its inclusion in the format. They can just say, hey, if you are playing the Levia precon, you can use Blood Rush Bellow. If you are playing the KO precon, you cannot. And it's that simple. If it's in the precon, you can use it, and if it's not, you can't. That would allow them to make new precons with different versions of the heroes if they wanted to. And here's the other thing too. If you're worried that LSS printing precons is going to break the game because, oh, they're going to introduce some crazy cards that break CC, all they have to do is print new heroes who are that format exclusive, like precon format exclusive, and just give them specializations that are either restricted to that format anyway, like we did with mentors and young heroes, which you could easily do. Or if you're really worried about it, but you want to introduce them later, you can just make them specializations for heroes that aren't named yet. Like for the new Smash Palace set, or the Guardian stuff that's coming out, the Mastery Pack, they have a Centaur Guardian. And I don't remember off the top of my name what that character's name is, but if you had a specialization for that hero, guess what? It's not available in CC. You can't play it. But it can make your games at that precon level super exciting and super fun and thematic and good and cheap too. So precon format, LSS designs every deck. If you can, if the card is in the precon, you can play it, and if it's not, you can't. Print good cards into the precons that are iconic staples for classes that will help get people to probably try the format more and not feel like they're wasting their money when they buy the precons. It'll get people to enjoy the fact that they can use their cards they already own to build the precon deck. They don't have to build it all over again necessarily, especially if it's using a lot of commons and rares and everything that already exist. And then on top of that, you can make new characters that have unique mechanics that are exciting to play as, You can use it as a testing ground for CC to see what works and what doesn't. And you can obviously make bans and stuff to those precons and amend the lists over time. But again, you have to do very thorough testing on the front end and make it resilient to adding new heroes to that format over time. So I really do think that's the best approach for LSS. They want to make things approachable. New players don't have to build a deck and figure out deck building. All they have to do is buy it for 15 bucks or 20 bucks, whatever it is, whatever price point you want to put it at. I think $20 to $25 would be totally justifiable. $25 probably a good price point with some markup, whatever. You show up to the event, you play the deck, you have fun, people teach you the game, it's got a sideboard, all the stuff you would ever need in it, and it would have some cards that are not necessarily monetarily valuable, but are playable. And that's the key of it too. No one wants yellow Chill to the Bone out of their $15 product. That's a waste of money, it's a waste of cardboard, and it's just garbage, right? But if you printed cards that people know that they want to play with that hero in CC, that are the core designed cards that they're supposed to use, then you can show people what you want them to do. You can restrict the power where you think it's appropriate to keep people from bowling over others with really unfair interactions. And you can have a target power level that LSS gets to test for and maintain over time, right? And there's some precons that are going to be more popular and some that are going to be less popular, and some are probably going to rise to the top of the metagame, especially as things change, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. You can always either add cards to the playable pool of the hero, super easy to do, or you could just say, hey, that's fine, we'll have Living Legend there too, and when that precon Living Legends, we'll put a new one out there for that hero that has a different card pool, and then boom, you have the same hero, all the same cards that you could have used before, but maybe a couple tweaks, and boom, you've got a new list that is that version of that hero. And of course, if you had like different versions of the same hero, like you could have Lightning Lexi and Ice Lexi, they could have, different suffixes on them or something. So these are just some off the top ideas. I think it makes a ton of sense. And while I'm excited for Flesh and Blood to have new things happening, I'm not super excited for Project Blue. I don't think that it will help. I think that it will be an interesting thing to try, but if you're excited for it, that's great. I'm happy for you for that, but for me, until LSS prints more commons and rares that are more interesting to play with and against, more interesting to explore what it feels like to play Flesh and Blood, which is not currently what rares and commons do, because again, that's simulating commons from draft formats and limited formats. Until LSS gets away from that and makes exciting, interesting, engaging, deep, directive, and deliberate gameplay design choices, I'm not really going to be excited for anything other than CC, because that's where all their really juicy design goes outside of the grindy marginal value that LSS does with their draft. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this brief discussion. I hope it gives you something to think about, and I hope that LSS considers the points that are brought up here. I hope that they're already thinking about it, and in the meantime, if you have any questions or any thoughts, you disagree with me entirely, think I'm totally wrong, let me know in the comments. I don't pretend to know everything. I think these are just some ideas, and so if you have ideas that you think could fix Project Blue and make it a rousing success of a format where everyone's excited to play it and all sorts of different characters, thematics, and gameplay fantasies are realized, then I say great. But I haven't seen it yet, and I do worry for that format with such a low card pool and such a straightforward, process, just that it's all in. I just worry for it. So let's see what we say as a community. Let's see if it takes on. But if not, I hope LSS does try to improve the new player onboarding experience, whoever that goes. And because we want to share this game with as many people as possible. It's a wonderful game. The DNA of it is rock solid. It's a really immaculately designed game, and it just needs a little bit more time in the oven to really come into its own. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.